How's it going, you guys? So yeah, this is, I suppose, a truck review of sorts. I've never actually reviewed the Thunder 149 Standard. So instead of doing the usual, like a week at most on a truck and then trying to describe what it was like, I wanted to take it right down to the axle until up to the point that I didn't want to skate them anymore. So that is what I did with these, and it's actually my second pair that I've taken down to the axle to the point I don't want to skate it anymore. And yeah, I really had a lot of fun on these Thunders. Let's get an up close look at them first. So I managed to get a good 1.5 inches of axle showing there, and skating concrete things, it was awesome. Axles grind so good on concrete, but they're not very good on anything metal. So that's why I stopped skating these, was because it was starting to bite on coping. Here's my front truck. Never did get to the axle on the crook, not on my last pair either. We are at the axle right there because this used to be my back truck. This is the first time I've ever switched my trucks around and ridden them through until they're dead. See, we got some good kingpin and yoke grindage. For anyone who doesn't know, this part of the truck is the yoke. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. So I actually first started riding Thunders because I was doing some product testing. So that was what actually got me off Indy. And then after a month of trying the trucks, every time I tried to ride Indies again, they felt way too squirrely and out of control. So that's one of the first things I noticed is like, Thunders still have a good turn, but they don't start to turn as fast as an Indy. So whenever I would try and ride Indies, and there was about 3 times that I tried, which lasted for 1 day because I felt like I was never not turning on Indies. Like I would try and correct course and then I'd be turning back the other way. So I felt like I just couldn't actually ride straight on them, which was a weird feeling. And the other thing is that, so these are 52 millimeter height to axle, whereas an Indy Standard is 55 millimeter height to axle. So that's a 3 mil difference. And what happened was, especially on transition, I just always felt like I was standing way too high above it, especially if I went from like an axled pair of trucks to a brand new set of Indies. You're talking like, that's probably like a centimeter of difference. So you literally are standing almost a centimeter higher on the coping. It's a really weird feeling. So in general, I had way more control on all my grinds, like my feeble grinds, crooked grinds, slappies, just everything. Like I was so much more locked in and controlled on these Thunders than whenever I would try Indies for like 1 day. So that's why I stayed on them. Oh, the other thing that happened was Indy Standards usually felt too tall and heavy, whereas Indy Hollows felt weirdly light and I couldn't get any pop. So it just, every time I tried, like it just wasn't working out for me. So on these trucks that I grooved so much, mostly because of my curb over there, I actually figured out slappies finally. So as you can see in these clips, I figured out how to not use the nose or tail at all, and I'm almost have my feet almost comedically close together, intentionally just to show that you really can do slappies. Like you don't even have to have them on the trucks. My feet are closer than that. They're like on the inside bolts. So you can do slappies. It's almost more like a snowboard. That's probably the best way to describe it. It's like using the heel side edge of a snowboard. It's such a weird feeling. Somebody said in the comments, they said slappies are hard until they're easy. And I 100% agree. They were the hardest thing for me to try and figure out, but once I did, they became really easy. I will say though, that once I go out into the streets and start trying to skate a crustier curb, things that are a little more intimidating, yeah, I don't do them so ridiculously. Like it's pretty easy to do it on like a prefabbed curb compared to like an actual street spot where you gotta really muster the will to slam into that thing a little harder. One of the other really nice things that happened while I was riding Thunders, and it wasn't because of Thunders, it was just where I got to in my healing, is I got my tray flips back, which was really nice. I can finally start throwing those around again without worrying about my knee. It's really exciting to me. Okay, so if this is going to be a review of sorts, why don't we talk about durability here? So Thunders don't seem to have a lot of meat over top of the axle. So if you're doing a lot of slappies on crusty curbs, I find that I do hit axle just from your basic slappy 50s a little sooner than I would like to. There does seem to be a decent amount of meat in front of the hanger though. Like both sets of these, I couldn't get to axle on my crooked grinds. It's also because I wasn't skating like intensely crusty things for crooked grinds in the last 6 months. But still, there was a solid effort. Like, I put a lot of time in trying to shape these grooves. Adriano's often laughing at me because I get to a point with my trucks where I'm not even going out skating just to skate. I'm like literally going out to shape the grooves on my trucks. It is a bit of an obsession for me. I consider every hanger to be a bit of a work of art. And now when picking spots, there must be crust. If there is no crust to skate, it's not happening. But yeah, generally I find a lot of slappy 50s will wear these out faster, but for your more tech sort of street skating stuff, there's plenty of meat on the front of the hanger. The one thing that I do have a pretty big problem with Thunders is bushings. I explode the bushings all the time. I find the stock bushings to be too loose for me personally. So I actually have a bit of a weird mod going on in here. I have 100A bushings in the back. These are Thunder replacement bushings. And I have the 90A in the front because I'm a little bit odd that way. I like my boards. I definitely like my back truck tighter than the front. Even though these are 100A, they're not that much harder than the 90A for some reason. So it's the perfect amount, because what I really hate doing is cranking down my back truck a whole bunch more than my front truck, because I can feel it start to lower it. And the more that it lowers it, the more the pop is too easy on the tail and starts to get a little bit ghost poppy on the nose. So that's one of those like really intense fussy things that I have. I find when I'm riding indies, I don't have the problem as bad, I think because the trucks are taller, and I usually only seem to have about a half thread to 1 thread difference at the most. But for some reason on the Thunders, I really had to crank the back with the 90A. So if I had one major complaint about Thunders, it's the bushings. I just break them way too often. The 100A ones seem to be quite durable though, but the 90A ones, the stock, they're way too hard when they're brand new in the winter, and they're way too soft as soon as it starts to get warm out. So for a guy who likes his trucks medium, yeah, I find the stock bushings in general for most of the year to be too soft. Now, base plate, a lot of people complain about the short base plate on a Thunder. When you're used to Thunders, the base plate thing isn't a problem. And the reason is you learn how to slide without that base plate. So all it is you push harder. I find that when I'm sliding on Thunders, it's a bit more of an effort to slide my nose and tail slides, almost like a power slide. Because really, that's what it is. It's against the edge of that ledge. You're just pushing more effort on the wheels. So yeah, it's just a different kind of slide. But as you can see in this clip, if you have enough wax on a ledge, it makes 0 difference.
And we all just want to be great, like how we drive a 50 car, a little drop bus.
Okay, you guys, if you didn't pick up on that, the best thing about that clip is there was somebody who was out of his mind singing Nickelback Rockstar. That spot is in the worst area, and it's just like chock full of drug addicts and alcoholics and junkies. It's like totally insane. I totally wonder if that guy just like heard that Nickelback song on the radio the night before, or if he's literally been on a loop for like 15 years since that song came out. You know, like maybe that's when his life started to go downhill and that song became a bit of a theme song for him. It's just been like on loop for 15 years. I don't know how old that song is, but it's roughly that old. Anyways, I better check my list here. I don't know if I have anything more to say about these. No, that's about it, you guys. It was fun taking these to the axle. Again, I love the way curbs feel, like concrete grinding on this. So apparently this is chromoly steel. That's what axles are made out of. Yeah, on concrete, it's so good. Every time I would go back to a newer truck that didn't have the exposed axle, it felt so slow, but it was starting to bite on coping, and that was just super sketchy for me. So that's why I stopped. Oh, one last thing I would say is I really love conical fulls on Thunders. Don't like them on Indies, but yeah, like just the lock and control with like a big wide wheel on Thunders is really nice. That was one of the first things I missed when I switched. real quick. Yeah, Indy Standard 149s, classic 52 millimeters. And I'm trying the 8.25 deluxe shape, the one with the 14 and 3/8 wheelbase. As my knee is getting stronger and feeling good again, I'm starting to feel more confident in skating like a taller, steeper, heavier board again. So it's got its advantages and disadvantages. I'm planning on doing a Indy 149 to the axle review. You know, these things take time. And anyways, to close out, here's a little bit of footage from a trip to Victoria I went on with my son. Went skating for a bit. That's all I have to say. Hope you guys are doing well. We'll close out with that footage.
Yes.